Military surplus rifles are a good way to get a great gun while being on a tight budget. Not only that, a lot of these military rifles are also surprisingly accurate. They come from a world where engagements were envisioned to happen at great distances. For that, you brought the power and, of course, the accuracy needed for such ranges. Being more often than not a good old bolt action, you can imagine the precision you get with them. As a nice add on used at anything less than their intended maximum distances, they also deliver devastating power. So, without further ado, here are the most accurate of them. Number 5, the Mauser Nagant M39. The Mauser Nagant M39 has its fanboys and haters. Some see a Mauser Nagant as being more dangerous to the shooter than the target, with millions having lost their life counting on it. For the fans, it's a great, at the same time, cheap gun. It reaches out far and hits what you aim at. If you want to get your own experience, you can buy it for little money and find out which side is telling the truth. The M39 is the version of the Finnish military. Having the Mauser Nagant, they just made the best out of them, making this rifle better in any way they could. Prior to the Winter War of 1939, they had different rifles in their military, and they wanted to standardize it to one. This was the birth of the M39. It came out just when the Russian army invaded their country. Well, this was a little bit late for the Winter War. This rifle comes into its own during the so-called Continuation War, the Finnish part of the World War II. With this history, it's easy to understand that there is some mystery surrounding this rifle. However, that does not diminish its power and accuracy. The iron sights are great and allow for precision long-range shots with ease. The barrels are Finnish-made that they installed on the original Russian guns. While the haters of the Mauser Nagant might be right that these guns are lemons, or at least not great, well, they're also wrong. Of the Mauser Nagant, 28 million were made. They came from a country not well known for having high production standards. The result is that some of them are so bad that they would miss the broadside of a barn, and others wouldn't miss a plate at ranges beyond 500 yards. The M39 is the Finnish precision version of the Mauser Nagant, making it the best of the lot. In other words, it's in a different class and cannot be compared to the average Mauser. A little more than 100,000 of them were produced, making them also great collector items. It's chambered in 7.62 by 54 rim, like the Mauser Nagant, and this makes the M39 easier and cheaper to shoot. Number 4, the Swiss K31. The Swiss K31 is part of the apex of the Schmidt-Rubin family of guns for the Swiss Armed Forces. In fact, from the design, it comes with a lot of changes compared to the other rifles of the family. It comes with a shorter action as well as a shorter stock. It was introduced in the Armed Forces in 1931 and stayed in service until 1958. Chambered in 7.5 by 55 millimeter, it's very accurate. The projectile has a weight of 174 grains and leaves the muzzle at a velocity of 2,750 feet per second. The stock is either walnut or beechwood. This changed over time as well as some other parts of the rifle. The reason for the changes is simple. They ran out of natural resources through the years. This change was, interestingly enough, also for the better, as many consider beechwood as the stronger material. Also, the alloy of the metal changed a little bit over the years. This was owed to the fact that the earlier models had some problems with failures in the receiver. Combined with the stronger stock, this makes the latter models more desirable to buy. Older variants sometimes come with new bolts to replace the old ones made from the older materials. As more and more shooters are looking into the more accurate parts of the military surplus market, the prices of these guns have been going up considerably. While you could get one of those for less than $200 a few years ago, now you're in the same area between $5,000 and $1,000. Another problem is the ammunition. Here, too, there would be larger quantities to be had on the military surplus market, but by now these stocks have dried up as well. This makes shooting these beauties a little bit more of a challenge when it is about finding the ammo as much as paying for it. These guns are incredibly accurate. You can get groups of 3 inches at 400 yards without breaking a sweat, and that with surplus ammo. Reloading yourself, this rifle will even grip different loads into a tight circle at 250 yards. There's almost nothing you can do wrong with it. Number 3, Argentine Mouser 1891. This is one of the first Mausers ever, one of the first contract the company got for military rifles. Chambered in 7.65 by 53 Belgium with a 311 diameter projectile, this bullet just shoots fast, far, and flat. You have no problem hitting anything with it, even at greater distances, and getting it down with only one hit. The projectile comes with a weight in the range of 170 grains and leaves the bullet with a velocity north of 2,500 feet per second. Granted, there are stronger cartridges out there, but fired from this gun, it will just flatten everything in its path. Speaking of Mauser rifles, the 1891 are not only a piece of history, but also a thing of beauty that serves you well hanging on your wall for hunting and for sniping if push comes to shove. Using them feels quite naturally and makes you part of their history. Having only iron sights, you might think hitting anything at longer ranges is a real challenge. Quite the opposite is true. Trying to miss something will be a challenge. It just points intuitively, and the round does the rest. Wind and weather, range, or even ranging mistakes, all of it cannot bring it from its path to the target. Number 2, the Swedish Mouser M96. The Swedish Mouser is chambered in 6.5 by 55 millimeter, a devastating round. This rifle with this round can drop anything you shoot at. The 6.5 millimeter projectile is a nice long surface for the rifling to work on and cuts through the wind with no effort. This makes for an ultra-flat trajectory, giving it an edge at longer ranges. The 6.5 millimeter bullet the Swedes use is just dead right. It's not too heavy and not too light. Its velocity is exactly where it has to be. While being relatively unknown in the USA, it is the go-to round for hunters in Sweden. You get the power you want without having to schlep around a ton of ammo when speaking only on the weight. Thanks to the great ballistic coefficient, it does keep its energy over a big part of its trajectory. The downside is that this caliber is not necessarily cheap to shoot. You'll have trouble finding the round, and if you find it, you have to pay more than you pay for other calibers. However, the performance is absolutely worth it. Number 1, AG42 Lung. This gun is actually a semi-automatic rifle, chambered in 6.5 by 55 millimeter. It's still great when it comes to accuracy. With this round, the trajectory is flat, the bullet is fast, and it does hit with quite some authority. It's one of the first guns coming with a direct gas impingement system. It uses a 10-round detachable box magazine, and you can use stripper clips as well. Very soft shooting with a good recoil impulse. It's no challenge at all to hit your target even at longer ranges. The soft recoil impulse comes from a barrel that is ported at the barrel, which works like a muzzle brake. That makes it feel like an AR when you shoot. Of course, this is also owed to the direct impingement system, which also soaks up some force of the recoil. There you have it, guys, some of the most accurate rifles you can find on the military surplus market. Of course, there are also many other guns that are very accurate on this market. If you think one of them deserves to make this list, let us know in the comments. Please do not forget to also tell us why it deserves to be called one of the most accurate military surplus rifles.